We're coming to you with some breaking news right now on this Tuesday morning. The Republican Oversight Committee released emails obtained through a Freedom of Information Act that request that shed new light on what Drs. Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins knew back in the early days of the pandemic into April of the first year of the pandemic, and what they thought about that information at the time. I'm actually reading this off my phone. The Republican Oversight Committee tweeted, "We've released never before seen emails," that you can see the tweet right there, "showing Dr. Fauci may have concealed information about COVID-19 originating from the Wuhan lab and intentionally downplayed the lab leak theory." A glance at the emails, Ryan and I were just reading through them, do appear to confirm that. The Republican Oversight Committee makes two claims early in their letter, which they sent to Javier Becerra. One, that Dr. Fauci knew the potential of the lab leak, and then two, that he knew the potential that the virus had been intentionally genetically manipulated, and also that he worked with the EcoHealth Alliance to sidestep the moratorium on gain-of-function research, intentionally sidestepped it to continue that research, continue funding that research in the Wuhan lab. Ryan, what's your reaction to this trove of emails that was literally just released?
So we're going through it now, and it's not entirely clear how much of it is new to the public and how much of it had not been released by Congress before. Right. Because a significant amount of this material has been leaking out into the public domain. Some of it through, and they actually have a footnote here citing the Intercept's reporting on these questions. This might have a little bit more context. We could put a link to the actual emails themselves, in this video, so people can read them. But basically, it's what it's trying to do is it's put more attention on a period of a couple of days that are extremely important in how our understanding, or how the public's understanding of the origin of COVID developed, and a lot of this has been known, and known to people who have been methodically following this. But I believe it's February 1st, 2020. There's a conference call that Drs. Collins and Fauci are on about the origin of COVID, and on that call, people speculate that it may have leaked from the lab in Wuhan. 3 or 4 days later, a paper is put together by some of these researchers that is speculating on the origins of COVID. That paper comes to Fauci and Collins. It later gets published and is used by Fauci as a way to tamp down any idea that, and to say that anybody who says this came from a lab is a conspiracy nut. Right. Now we know that Fauci was aware that people within the NIH and scientists involved in this process had questions about whether or not it did come from this lab. And so what Republicans are asking here, and what we don't know yet, is what are the precise contents of the first draft of that paper, and what, if any, role did Fauci have in editing that paper? That's one of the questions the Republicans ask. Did he have new scientific information that changed what he had heard on that call on February 1st? Or was he covering up the fact that it potentially came out of a lab because at the time he knew, and this is where they cite the Intercept's reporting, he knew that the U.S. was funding EcoHealth Alliance's research in the lab, knew that they were in violation and doing some sloppy stuff, and that gain of function was involved. And so, was this a Fauci cover-up effort, or was there new science? And from the Republicans' perspective, they don't seem to believe that there was anything that came out in the 3 days between when they suspected it may have been a lab leak to when they might have edited the paper to say that there wasn't one. Do we have the clip of Fauci on with Chuck Todd?
According to multiple people familiar with this classified document, what kind of light can you shed on this report, and what do you remember about it at the time?
Yeah. Chuck, there's nothing new about that. All of us have always realized, and I feel this way, I haven't changed. Most of the scientists that I know feel that way, that the most likely origin is a natural origin from an animal reservoir to human. However, we have not ruled out the possibility that there could have been a leak from the lab of them working on the virus. It could have been that someone was infected early on, they brought him into the lab, and it came out of the lab, but it was already out in the community. So I think the confusion is because most of the scientists felt that the most likely, and the reason is most likely historically, we've seen this over and over again. We've seen it with SARS-CoV-1, with MERS, with Ebola, with influenza, with pandemic flu, with bird flu, with HIV/AIDS. That's what you see all the time. That happens when you have the animal-human interface. But all of us have been open-minded enough to know that until you nail down exactly what it is, you always must leave open the possibility with an open mind that there could be a leak.
Okay, so what you can see is that it's true. Dr. Fauci is saying, listen, we haven't completely ruled it out, but in the emails that were released, you see Dr. Collins calling this a dangerous conspiracy theory that threatens, and this is crucial, I think, quote, international harmony. So you can see how the concerns of these bureaucrats were not just about the truth, but they're about the effect on our relationship with China. And Dr. Fauci says it's a shiny object that will go away with time. That's in the emails. And so you can see how the sort of conflict about where to actually follow the evidence and how to talk about the evidence is appearing, because Fauci is in that conversation with Chuck Todd saying, listen, we haven't ruled it out, but privately they're talking about it as a dangerous conspiracy theory and a shiny object. And that seems to be a really important distinction. In addition to the rest of this, the Intercept reporting that is cited here is so crucial, because that's outright corruption, saying you're not doing something, working to soften the rules, and so that you can basically lie and obfuscate about the fact that you are doing it. You're doing it.
Right.
It's awful.
And we'll keep exploring these documents, and we can we'll explore them more tomorrow. But as of now, what this is an effort to elevate this question. And one of the questions that that Republicans ask in this letter is, could the knowledge of the origin have had any effect on vaccine development or treatment or anything else?
And research.
In the scientific process, you want to know everything. Like you want everything out there so that you can throw everything at it. And if it is the case that he covered this up, which all of the evidence does point in that direction, then those are extremely serious questions, and Republicans are asking him to come in and testify under oath to that. So if he doesn't, if he refuses, Republicans are likely to have some subpoena power come 2023.
Well, and I wonder if President Biden asks Fauci to sort of resign nobly before that would happen, in a way that it would ripple into his administration, because the administration continues to promote Dr. Fauci as a credible source, because I don't think he gets due skepticism from the media, the legacy media at least, when he goes on the Sunday shows and answers questions that are purported to be tough, or might be in style sounding tough, but aren't really tough, because these questions, as Ryan says, a lot of this we sort of have known from leaks. We have sort of gotten at from leaks. But I think this does create a big problem for the Biden administration, because this is the process of sort of shoes dropping that creates a trickle, a drip, 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 that every time it breaks into the news cycle makes the administration look ridiculous for continuing to promote this guy.
Yeah, and for a long time, the polarized nature of this debate meant that Fauci was basically immune from criticism from Democrats and the left.
He had the vaccine.
Yeah, and also the alternative was so crazy, like Trump. Trump. So you're like, okay, I'm with this guy. That's how so many Democrats felt. But now that Democrats are turning on the CDC and starting to question whether or not the CDC is following the science, in the famous Democratic phrase. I think that creates vulnerabilities within the Democratic coalition for Fauci himself.
Yes.
You know, if the CDC becomes, because once you start questioning the response to it, then you say, well, wait a minute, what did you tell us in the very beginning about this?
Yeah, and we'll have to see how the legacy media responds to the release of these emails, which, again, I don't know who FOIA'd. If it was the Republican Oversight Committee, I mean, this
wouldn't exactly be a FOIA because that's the press. I think they just do straight up document requests.
Right,
yeah.
right. But this is something that the legacy media should have been chasing doggedly, and maybe other people had FOIAs, and I don't know. But I'm curious to see how the legacy media takes this up because, you know, I think they've protected Fauci, and Biden now has just a truly unbelievable number of COVID deaths over the course of his administration. Infections, people feel like, are out of control, even if this variant is more mild. And it's a really bad time for the public face of the Biden response to COVID and the public face of our political establishments and our bureaucracy's response to COVID to face questions in his own words. I mean, right. Emails in his own words.
And I think we all just want to know the truth, because if we can learn the truth, that can help us avoid this type of thing in the future. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and that's the point, is that, like, we are vulnerable right now. There's nothing to say that we've earned a break from another pandemic, right? Like, we didn't earn a break from a pandemic. This could happen any moment.
What else is going on at these sketchy labs all over the world?
And are we funding them? I mean, and are we softening regulations to get around public scrutiny of the fact that we're funding them? I mean, again, like, we don't get a reprieve from pandemics just because we're still going through one for 2 years. This could happen again at any time. Our government is ill-prepared. They're not willing to admit their own mistakes, and that leaves us all more vulnerable for it.
Right, and if it's a catchy virus and you say, well, gain-of-function research is too dangerous to be done here in the United States, do it all the way over here in China, in this city with 25 million people. It'll never get over here.
Yep.
Oh, they have airplanes over there.
Can you believe it?
Who knew? Who knew?
Oh, but hey, international harmony.
International harmony.
Jeez.
Yes.
We'll have plenty more on that tomorrow, I expect.
Indeed. And we'll have more Rising right after this.